us all. May I ask our new president, Bjarne Olesen, to come forward and present his 2017-2018 address.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Yap. I thought we had agreed that you were 2 hours older than I am. But you still don't believe it, so. Unfortunately, our mothers cannot give the exact date on that. So, it's a pleasure for me to stand here in front of you today. It's a big honor to be your new president. And I will, over the next 20 minutes, talk a little about my vision for ASRAE in the coming year. Well, it's not only my vision, it's based on our strategic plan. So you have all been involved in creating this plan, and I will take parts of this plan and put more emphasis on during my year. So the next 20 minutes, I hope to share with you the specific aspects I want to focus on during my presidential year. I hope to motivate you and embolden you to renew your efforts and commitment to our plan, and make you optimistic and enthusiastic about the future of ASRAE. My name is Bjarne Olesen, and there you have the first problem. How do you pronounce my name? Let's hear a couple of examples on how my name is pronounced.
Bjarne Olsen.
Bjarne Olsen.
Bjarne.
Bjorn Olsen.
No.
Bjarne Olsen. Bjarne Olsen.
Bjarne. Bjarne Olsen.
Jane Olsen.
Well, I have to think about it. Bjarne Olesen.
Barney Olsen.
Bjarne Olsen. Yeah.
Bjarne Olsen.
Bjarne Olsen. Bjarne Olsen.
I said Bjarne the last conference, and then the person sitting next to me always might be Bjarne. I'm like, okay, now I.
So you hear, it only takes one conference to learn it, so. But no matter what you call me, I will promise you I will do everything to make this a good year for ASRAE. Now, before I get into some of my vision, I think new presidents, they always start with a couple of executive orders. So my first executive order is that in 1718, the official language of ASRAE will be broken English. And I speak that very well. Now, the other executive order. I think you know this. This will be the last time you see a slide rule at ASRAE meeting. I forbid to use slide rule at future meetings. If you are stopped in the security, you will not be able to enter the plane. So slide rules are out. Think about people coming here and seeing slide rule. They think we are 50 years behind. So, Denmark. We have heard about Denmark. We were number 2 on the list as the happiest people. Well, years ago it was worse. Shakespeare thought it was something rotten in the state of Denmark and at Hamlet castles. And since then we have improved. We were the happiest people until this year. We have been for many years. Now it's Norway. But you know where the Norwegians go if they want to have fun? They go to Denmark. So one of our actors, some of you know him from Game of Thrones, was on a talk show, and Jimmy Kimmel asked him, "Why are Danes the happiest people in the world?" And his answer was, "Maybe it's because of low expectations." Well, I don't have low expectations about the coming year. I don't have low expectations about ASRAE. I think it will be a great year. We have a lot of things in front of us that we can do. So how did I get here? Well, the first time I was introduced to ASRAE was when I was doing my master or PhD thesis at the university. I met people who were ASRAE members and scientists. I met, for example, Faro Gaggi, who is one of the founders of what we know about thermal comfort in ASRAE. I met Ralph Nevins, who was heading the ASRAE Research Lab at Kansas State University. And I started looking also at the ASRAE handbooks and transactions. So it was really no surprise that one of my mentors, Professor Fanger, asked me to go and present my PhD study at an ASRAE meeting in June 1977. So that was my first ASRAE meeting. Even the local newspaper found this interesting and gave me a very positive article in the newspaper. So as Jaap mentioned, Professor Fanger was a mentor for me. I was his first PhD student, and he is now a member of the Hall of Fame. Another of my mentors, Per Bryl, he was a scientist, but he also started a company where I started working part-time. The two of them, they had a competition who would get the most honorable doctorates. And you can see from the number that Fanger, he got most of it. So one of the things I remember when I talked to Per Bryl and I was starting traveling both for university and industry, I told him, well, I don't think I'm so fond about traveling that much. And he said, just wait, you will like it. Well, now here I am, have been in 70 countries, all 50 states. How many have been in all 50 states? Well, not the majority. I just have to tell you something about the 50 states, because my wife Rita and I, we had a competition. She was missing Ohio, and I was missing Alaska. I had been in the airport in Anchorage, but that didn't count, she said. So when the ASRAE meeting in Cincinnati came up, I thought, what do I do? And that was in Ohio. So I told her, Cincinnati is a boring town. You don't really want to go there. So she stayed home. And then I think 2 years after we had ASRAE meeting in Seattle, I said, why don't we take a cruise to Alaska before the ASRAE meeting? Well, sorry, Cincinnati, but she has been in Ohio now. So as I mentioned, our strategic plan is important for how we run the society in the future. And I think it's very important, like the two previous presidents, that you look in the strategic plan and take things out and emphasis during your year, because it's not your theme, it should be the whole society's theme. And earlier, you remember, David Underwood was using Connect. Tim has been on Adapt. And I'm going to focus on Extend. And that brings me to the focus on my presidential year, extending our community, both looking at extending the global community, our technological horizon, and extend our values to members. So when we look at the global community, the world is getting smaller with all the different means of having contact with each other. ASRAE is growing bigger, and we are a global community. If you look at the number of members we have about 20% of members outside North America. And We have chapters outside. So we are already present in a big part of the world. And as you just heard, from July 1st, we have a new region. We have an European region from July 1st. In Europe, we have about 1,800 members, and we have 5 chapters. After this meeting, we may have 7 chapters in Europe, so it goes very fast. But one important thing about Europe is that we have very strong, or they have very strong national societies in Europe. Some of these societies are under an umbrella organization called Arriva, and others, like CIPSA, that's a UK society, are also working outside their own borders, like in Hong Kong and Australia, like ASRE. So during the last year, under the leadership of Professor Tim Wentz, we have been able now to make several strategic partnership agreements, both with CIPSA and with Riva. And we are now talking also with some of the national societies like ICA from Italy, which are very important. And they have like an ASRE group within their society. So what we will see in Europe is that we will not exactly follow the whole same structure as North America. We will have chapters and sections, but we will also have ASRE group which are melded together with the national society. So we have to adapt and we have to be creative in the way we work. We cannot just take how we work here in the US and just put that everywhere in the world. It's not one size will not fit all. So that was a new region, but that's probably not the end of it. Members Council is at the moment reviewing our regional structure because we have other regions which you may see split up or come up with new regions. We may also see some regions collapse together. So I think that's an exercise which Members Council are going to work with also in the coming year. We could expand to Africa, where we have one chapter in Africa, but there are more possibilities, and they need our help. Looking at the global connection we have in ASRE, we have a group, what we call the ASRE Associate Society Alliance. It's a group of more than 60 national HVNC and R societies, and we meet almost all of them at the winter meeting, and then we have a shorter meeting here at the summer meeting. But we need to bring this out of the corner of ASRE. We need to make that up as the global alliance of HVAC&R. We need to be present at the COP meetings because we are responsible for 40% of the energy use. So we are in a process to see how we can make this more prominent and get an international presence. For example, the United Nations are building technology. And one way of that is I'm planning the first meeting of the Associated Alliance will be in Brussels next year in April. Developing economies is another place on the global community where we can make a difference. We have about 3,500 ASRE members in developing economies, but we have 3 billion people who are exposed to very bad indoor air quality, and about 5,000 people are dying every day. So even if energy is very high on our list for ASRE, as we put emphasis on, here is really a place where we may come in and help and save lives. What can ASRE do? Well, we have a partner who is working very much with developing economies, that earlier called UNEP, or the United Nations Environment Program. And we want to increase our partnership with the UN Environmental Program. So what does that mean, extending our global community? Do we change completely the course of ASRE? No, we don't. But a more global and diverse membership makes a much stronger society. If we look at all the big companies, also consulting engineers, they're working globally. They're not working in one country. We see a lot of global exchange of technology. I think from the US, we brought a lot of air conditioning around the world. From Europe, we have got in the US displacement ventilation, chill beams. So this exchange of technology actually can play a very important role with this global exchange of information. And as I mentioned, our industry is global. So we need to be more global, but will benefit everybody. We also have to look at the technology we are providing. We have been very much focused, when you look at most of the publications and standards we have had, has been related to mostly commercial building. So I would put some more focus on the residential. Again, what type of technology can we provide that will help people in developing economies? And what about our standardization? How is our standards looked at globally? So when we now look first at the residential, we have established a residential committee. And why is residential so important? Well, you spend most of your time at home, or most of you do, so your exposure to the indoor environment, the most exposure is in your home. And more energy is spent in homes to heat, cool, ventilate homes than in commercial building. So the residential should have much more emphasis than it has now. So what we have done is, as I mentioned, we have formed a residential building committee who is running this program. We are now trying to establish an ASRE conference with a residential emphasis. We have included residential in our Green Building Guide, and the first design guide is now being planned, and it will be for multifamily buildings. We cannot make a guide that covers all residential building. Residential buildings are very different around the world. And if we want to help, we also need guidelines that are influenced by people from around the world. So I see in the future that on the regional level that you may write the guidelines with the help of staff here from Atlanta. Residential buildings are also different. As I said, you have the biggest exposure to the indoor environment at home, so it has a very significant influence on health and comfort. Sleep quality is very important. Sleep quality is very, very important for your employer, because if you don't sleep well, you will not have a high performance the next day. I think that's something that's often overlooked, the indoor environment and the bedroom. And occupant behavior is something we see now has a very big impact, both on the health and comfort you get in your house, but also on the energy use. It can change the energy use with a factor 6. So we need to look more and study how can we better predict occupant behavior, but also how can we influence it? How can we make it so the occupant can change what they want, but that they get feedback when they do something which doesn't improve the indoor environment or increase the energy use? And we will see in the future, all residential buildings will be connected through the grid, and sometimes the grid, they want to use them and store energy, other times they want to take some of the energy they produce with a PV and put in the grid. So we would have to look also on what we can call smart cities. Developing economies, there's rapid development of large urban environments. One thing we did to help was to lower the membership rates for these groups. Now we also have established the first course on refrigerants together with UNEP. It's a course that UNEP is going to be used. And we also now have conferences focusing on developing economies. Standardization. This is a big thing in ASRE. It's very important for our income. There's a lot of voluntary work in standardization. Can we do something so that we influence more standardization outside the US? This are very much dominated by ISO, the International Standard Organization, or in Europe, European Standard Organization. So how can we get better involved in this? And we have just had a presidential ad hoc who have come out with a report we are going to look at and see how we can implement some of the ideas that they have. Finally, extending our values to members. What I have in mind is I would like to support a more chapter regional conference joint between regions. We will focus much on student and also try to connect chapters and students, branches from different countries with each other. It should not be at the top level only where we have relation to other countries, but also at the grassroots level. We had last year one of the biggest combined CRCs between Region Atlas and Region 13 in Bangkok, where we exposed the whole board to how international ASRAE is and how we can increase this global community of ASRAE. Students, that is where we're having our new members coming. One of the big competition for students is Solar Decathlon, and it has been taking place here in the US for many years. But now you find Solar Decathlon also in China, Caribbean, Europe, and other places of the world. And we want to extend our support to these in the same way we do as with the Solar Decathlon here, also do that in the rest of the world. And we want to connect our local chapters with the universities which are involved in these competitions so they can help with engineering guidance. And I think a good way of increasing the global exchange is that chapters from different countries, they may have program. Now through the web and so on, it's easy to share a program. There's something about the time zone, but you can work around that. So what we will do is we increase that the POE points. If you do these things, you get a lot more points. So we give some incentive that people establish that. And now another new thing is we have just established a global training center in Dubai. That is to help educating people in this part of the world. We will have an official opening on September 19th. So can you really be global when you say people, they talk different languages, even they do talk different units? I thought first that should be one of my things. I wanted to change the units here in the US so you use the same as the rest of the world. But I have given up on that. But there are things that are common between different parts of the world. And one thing is that was recognized by a Danish American comedian, Victor Borge. I think some of the life members among you remember Victor Borge. And he said, the smile is the shortest distance between two people. And smile and laughter is the same, no matter where you are in the world. So when we are now looking at extending our community, we need to, as from the strategic plan, we have to adapt to new technologies, and we have to make global connections. So the coming year, you will see not that we change the course, but I will put more emphasis on the global part, but in a way also, so that it will be a two-way communication. It's not only focused on what's happening outside North American, but how can you get a better exchange between members here in the US and members around the world. And very important is when we do all this, and that's the strength of ASRAE, all this voluntary work is really what makes ASRAE great. But you will not do all this voluntary work if you didn't also have fun. So it's very important that you have fun when you do your work. Thank you.
When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you.